The clock on Officer Michael Carter's cruiser glowed 6:42 p.m., the last golden rays of sunlight slipping away behind the tall oaks that lined Saluda Avenue, a street known for its stately brick homes and quiet affluence in Columbia, South Carolina. The air was cool, tinged with the faint scent of freshly mown lawns, as Michael sipped his lukewarm coffee from a battered thermos, his mind already counting down the hours until the end of his shift. Suddenly, his attention snapped to a sleek black Mercedes gliding through the intersection, slowing far too leisurely for his liking. The car's rear was unadorned, no license plates visible, and it rolled forward past the stop sign, not enough to trigger the sensors, but enough to stir unease in Michael's seasoned instincts. Without hesitation, he flicked on his flashing lights and grabbed the radio. Dispatch, Unit 24 initiating traffic stop on black Mercedes S-Class, no visible plates, occupied. The vehicle eased to the curb beneath a blooming dogwood, its glossy surface reflecting the dimming sky, while Michael's boots hit the pavement with purposeful calm. Approaching, he felt the familiar weight of duty settle over him, eyes scanning, senses alert. The window rolled down smoothly, revealing a voice crisp and composed. "Evening, officer." The tone was calm, unwavering. Michael blinked, startled by the woman who met his gaze. An African American woman, possibly in her 60s, her silver hair cropped short, her posture regal and unyielding. Draped in a flowing black robe that marked her as a judge, her steady hands rested confidently on the steering wheel. "I'm Judge Deborah Harris," she announced with a nod, her voice carrying the quiet authority of years spent commanding courtrooms. The unexpected encounter sent a ripple through Michael's thoughts, blending respect with lingering suspicion, setting the stage for a confrontation that would soon ripple far beyond this quiet neighborhood street. The air between Officer Michael Carter and Judge Deborah Harris was charged with an unspoken tension as the evening shadows deepened around them. Michael's eyes flicked to the crisp black robe she wore, a symbol of authority and gravitas, contrasting sharply with the sleek black Mercedes beneath her. "License and registration, please," he said, his voice steady but laced with cautious curiosity. Without hesitation, Deborah reached into her purse with a practiced grace, producing the requested documents as if this ritual had been repeated countless times before. She handed them over smoothly, her gaze unwavering, unflinching under the scrutinizing eyes of the officer. Michael examined the papers carefully, the weight of the moment pressing on him. His fingers brushed the driver's license, then the vehicle registration, noting the matching names. Yet, a quiet doubt lingered, a whisper of suspicion that he struggled to dismiss. "Any reason you pulled me over?" Deborah asked, her tone calm but edged with quiet authority, a challenge wrapped in civility. Michael's jaw tightened as he chose his words with care. "This car fits the description of a stolen vehicle reported earlier today," he replied slowly, watching her reaction closely. A subtle raise of an eyebrow was her only response. "It's registered to me," she said firmly. "You can confirm that with dispatch." Michael nodded, stepping back toward his cruiser, radio pressed to his lips. As he waited for confirmation, his eyes remained fixed on her silhouette, framed by the darkening sky, noticing the steady calm in her posture. She did not fidget. She did not reach for her phone. She simply sat, embodying a quiet dignity that made his growing unease all the more pronounced. When dispatch finally responded, no stolen vehicle reported under that VIN. Michael's grip on the radio loosened, yet the knot in his gut remained. Something about the encounter refused to settle, as if beneath the surface of paperwork and protocol lay currents deeper and more unsettling than a simple traffic stop. Even with the dispatch's clear confirmation echoing through the radio, Officer Michael Carter's unease refused to fade. The night had settled fully now, shadows stretching longer and thicker across the quiet street, as if mirroring the growing tension between him and the woman behind the wheel. He hesitated, papers still in hand, and instead of handing them back, took a deliberate step closer to the car, his voice lowering but firm. "Mind stepping out of the vehicle for me, ma'am?" he asked, a question weighted with authority, but tinged with an uncertainty he struggled to mask. Judge Deborah Harris's eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of sharpness cutting through her composed exterior. "Is that a lawful order?" She responded evenly, the challenge clear but unprovoked, her tone calm like a judge questioning a witness in her courtroom. The small crowd that had gathered nearby, drawn by the flashing lights and growing voices, held its breath. Phones lifted, capturing every word, every subtle movement, while murmurs rippled through the onlookers. Michael's hand instinctively drifted toward his holster, a silent reminder of the power he wielded, but just as quickly, he pulled back, awareness settling like ice. "I'm asking you to step out," he repeated, voice tighter now, but his stance had shifted. The certainty wavered beneath the weight of the watching eyes and the woman's unwavering gaze. Deborah's voice rose, cutting through the murmurs. "Are you detaining me?" she pressed, the question sharp as a gavel strike. "Because I'm asking you to step out so we can clear things up." The tension stretched taut, the air thick with unspoken accusation and defiance. From across the street, a young man called out, "That's Judge Harris. She ain't lying." The crowd's energy surged, an undercurrent of solidarity pulsing in the dusk as the silent dance of authority and resistance reached a fragile, charged standoff beneath the fading light. The tension between Officer Michael Carter and Judge Deborah Harris thickened like the gathering dusk as voices from the crowd began to ripple louder, the buzz of phones recording every heartbeat of the confrontation. Michael's gaze hardened, but beneath the surface, the years of policing, the instincts honed on countless streets, wavered under the weight of public scrutiny. "I asked you to step out," he said again, voice edged with impatience, the authority in it unyielding but strained. Deborah's eyes flashed, calm yet resolute, her voice sharpening with measured force. "Is that a lawful order?" she challenged once more, unwavering as the dark robe draped over her shoulders. The murmurs grew into whispered affirmations from the crowd. Someone shouted, "That's Judge Harris, man. You're messing up." Yet Michael held his ground, his fingers twitching near the holster in a silent battle between control and caution. The street felt like a courtroom itself, the assembled witnesses holding their breath, phones raised like gavels ready to strike. Deborah's voice rose above the hum, crystal clear. "You've received confirmation. It is not stolen. You are now unlawfully detaining me." The words hung heavy in the air, a verdict that cut sharper than any gavel. Michael's stance shifted, subtle but telling, the rigidity giving way to uncertainty. He glanced toward the growing crowd, the steady glare of cameras capturing every hesitation, every flicker of doubt. A woman near the sidewalk muttered, "She's the one who gave my cousin probation last month? She's fair." The whispers of support began to swell, a chorus challenging the badge's presumed authority. Slowly, Deborah rolled her window up just enough to seal herself from the noise, her jaw set with the quiet strength of someone who had long weathered battles far beyond this intersection. Michael retreated a step, heart pounding beneath the uniform, caught in the collision of duty, doubt, and the undeniable force of a woman refusing to be subdued. Officer Michael Carter stood frozen for a moment, the weight of Judge Deborah Harris's words sinking deep into the charged air between them. His hand lingered dangerously close to his holster, fingers twitching as though ready to draw, but the growing chorus of voices from the watching crowd and the sharp gaze of the judge held him back. "You don't get to carry a badge and walk around with that kind of certainty," Deborah said quietly, her voice cutting through the tension like a sharpened blade. "Not when it's wrong, not when it puts lives at risk." The street felt electrified, every whispered conversation and camera flash amplifying the moment's gravity. Someone across the way called out, "That's Judge Harris. She's been on the bench longer than you've been out of high school." The statement hung like a challenge, a reminder of experience clashing with assumption. Michael swallowed hard, the chest-tightening realization washing over him that this was no routine stop. It was a reckoning. "I'm just doing my job," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else, as doubt began to erode the rigid walls of his certainty. Deborah's eyes locked with his, unyielding yet not unkind. "Do you know how many hours I've spent this week in courtrooms, mediating disputes, signing warrants, ruling on bond hearings?" she asked, her voice steady as a metronome. "You think after all that, I'd clock out and decide to steal a car off Divine Street?" A pause stretched between them, the words sinking like stones in a still pond. Michael's jaw clenched, his gaze dropping to the cracked pavement, unable to meet hers. "Is this your only vehicle?" he finally asked, the edge in his voice betraying a shift from suspicion to something more personal. Deborah leaned her head against the window frame, a faint, ironic smile playing at her lips. "That's the fourth time you've implied I shouldn't be driving this car," she said softly. "It's not personal." "Sure it is," he heard her whisper, as the night around them held its breath, caught in the delicate balance of authority, bias, and unspoken truths laid bare under the streetlights. The night thickened as Officer Michael Carter grappled with the unspoken accusations hanging heavy between them. His voice faltered, fingers tapping nervously against the cruiser's doorframe, while Deborah Harris sat composed inside her sleek Mercedes, the very image of poise and quiet strength. "You don't see me," she said softly, her eyes piercing through the dim light. "Not really. You see a possibility you've already decided is true." The words hit him with the weight of a verdict, unearthing a chasm between perception and reality. He looked away, shame creeping beneath his skin as the distant murmur of the crowd buzzed like a swarm around them. "You don't get to wear a badge and wield it with that kind of certainty," she continued, voice steady but laden with conviction. "Not when it blinds you to who I am. Not when it endangers lives." Michael's chest tightened, the line between duty and prejudice blurring beneath the fluorescent glow of the streetlights. She softened slightly, a subtle shift that revealed the exhaustion of years spent navigating a world built on assumptions and suspicion. "You could have run my name, confirmed everything, and I'd have been on my way in 10 minutes, Deborah said, her tone almost gentle. "But instead, you're still here, questioning how I bought my own car." He opened his mouth to respond, but closed it again, words failing under the weight of truth. Around them, the crowd shifted, whispers turning into cautious encouragement. From across the street, a young voice broke through. "She's the one who gave my cousin probation last month. She's fair." The acknowledgement settled in the cool air, a small yet potent reminder of the human stories behind badges and robes. Michael's grip on authority loosened, uncertainty threading through his stance, as the evening's quiet battle between justice and judgment unfolded beneath the indifferent stars. The stillness of the night was punctuated by the soft click of a car door shutting as Judge Deborah Harris stepped out of her Mercedes, her black robe flowing around her like a silent declaration of authority. The gathered crowd gasped, a mixture of surprise and reverence rippling through the onlookers, their phones still raised but momentarily lowered as they absorbed the gravity of the moment. Deborah stood tall, her hands resting calmly at her sides, eyes sweeping over the faces lit by the fading streetlights. "This is what it takes," she declared, her voice steady and clear, carrying the weight of countless battles fought beyond this quiet street. Around her, the atmosphere shifted, no longer just a confrontation between officer and citizen, but a powerful statement on dignity, respect, and the silent strength of those too often overlooked. Officer Michael Carter watched, the tension coiling tighter within him, his hand drifting again toward his belt, fingers trembling with the instinct to assert control. But before anything could escalate, the sharp, commanding voice of Officer Laura Mitchell cut through the air. "Don't," she urged, stepping between them with a firm yet gentle authority. Michael froze, the room seeming to hold its breath as the invisible line between conflict and calm was drawn. Deborah's eyes met Michael's, unflinching and resolute. "You're not the law," she said, each word deliberate. "The law is written, studied, and upheld by those who've earned the right to interpret it. You enforce it, but only if you remember what it means." The crowd exhaled collectively, the raw intensity of the moment lingering like a charged current. Michael's shoulders slumped ever so slightly, the weight of responsibility pressing down, the realization dawning that power without understanding is a fragile thing, one that can shatter lives as easily as it commands obedience. As Deborah's robe caught a gentle breeze, she stood not just as a judge on a street corner, but as a symbol of resilience in a world desperate for justice to be more than a word. The air on Saluda Avenue had transformed from tense confrontation to a stage of silent observation, as the crowd that had gathered swelled into a sea of faces, phones raised like sentinels capturing every fleeting moment. Word had spread fast. What began as a simple traffic stop had morphed into something far greater, a catalyst sparking whispers of injustice and calls for accountability. News clips and live streams surged across social media platforms. The video of Judge Deborah Harris standing tall in her flowing robe behind the wheel of her Mercedes, becoming a viral symbol of resilience and resistance. Inside the Columbia Police Department, the mood was heavy with the weight of public scrutiny. The morning briefing room, usually buzzing with casual chatter and the aroma of burnt coffee, was now engulfed in silence, so thick it seemed to swallow even the faintest breath. Chief Harold Epps entered with a grave expression, sliding a freshly printed headline across the table. South Carolina judge wrongly targeted in traffic stop. Was her robe the real threat? All eyes shifted, lingering not only on the article, but on Officer Michael Carter, seated quietly in the corner, his posture stiff and guarded. The unspoken questions hung in the air. How had a routine stop escalated into a maelstrom of accusations? How did respect for authority dissolve into doubt and suspicion? Even Officer Laura Mitchell, the voice of reason and calm during the incident, found herself cast in a new light, her allegiance questioned by colleagues and public alike. Meanwhile, Judge Harris retreated to the solitude of her kitchen, the cold coffee untouched beside her, as she replayed the video on her phone. Each frame laid bare the stark reality. The badge and robe, symbols meant to command respect, colliding painfully with deep-seated bias and fractured trust. Her father's image, a black police officer from decades past, stared back from the refrigerator, a silent reminder of battles fought long before hers. The city was watching, waiting, caught in the fragile balance between justice served and justice denied, as one woman's quiet strength challenged a system still wrestling with its own reflection. The courtroom was stripped of grandeur, no towering marble pillars or sweeping banners, just a modest room crowded with stiff-backed chairs and the low hum of anticipation. Judge Deborah Harris sat quietly at the witness table, her hands folded with the poise of a seasoned jurist, but today she was not the one passing judgment. Officer Michael Carter entered through a side door, his uniform replaced by a navy blazer and khaki slacks, the weight of the night etched deeply into the lines of his face. Silence swallowed the room. No applause greeted him, no jeers followed, only the expectant stillness that demanded truth without distraction. Before them sat the 5-member oversight committee, their eyes sharp, ready to dissect every frame of the body cam footage, to sift through every word and gesture for signs of misconduct. The screen flickered to life, the raw moments playing out in stark clarity. Michael's tense commands, Deborah's calm but firm defiance, the charged exchange that spiraled into a silent battle of wills. Then a sudden interruption. 39 seconds of audio vanished, replaced by eerie silence. Committee Chair Helen Reynolds adjusted her glasses, gaze fixed on Michael. Officer Carter, can you explain why your body cam audio drops during that critical segment? The question hung heavy. Michael cleared his throat, the room leaning in. I don't know. Might have been a malfunction. But a follow-up revelation pierced through the uncertainty. Department logs showed his hand had brushed the mute toggle precisely when the audio ceased. No response came, the implication undeniable. Deborah sat unmoved, her expression neither smug nor bitter, simply a witness to accountability. When it was her turn, her voice carried the quiet power of experience, recounting the encounter not to defend herself, but to illuminate the deeper truths beneath the surface, about trust, restraint, and respect. The uniform does not grant permission to ignore facts, she said firmly. It demands honoring them. Outside, a crowd gathered behind barricades, signs raised high with words that echoed the room's solemnity. Power doesn't equal permission. Who judges the police? The protest may have been small, but its message roared loudly. Justice was no longer just a word, it was a demand. By the time the panel reconvened, the room was thick with anticipation. Committee Chair Helen Reynolds didn't waste a moment before delivering their verdict. Officer Michael Carter's conduct was unbecoming of his position, his actions deemed excessive, unsupported by the evidence, and suggestive of a troubling pattern inconsistent with departmental standards. A collective gasp rippled through the spectators. Some whispered that the punishment was too lenient, others that it was a necessary step toward accountability. Michael blinked, absorbing the weight of the decision. A 60-day unpaid suspension coupled with mandatory bias retraining, pending final approval. Further violations would mean immediate termination. Judge Deborah Harris stood quietly, her face a mask of measured calm. When reporters approached her, microphone poised for sound bites, she spoke with the steady conviction of someone who understood that justice is not a singular moment, but an ongoing practice. I don't believe in justice as a moment, she said softly. It's a practice, and tonight was just one part of it. Across the street, Michael lingered beneath a towering oak, watching cars pass by, feeling the sharp sting of consequences settling in. His badge and gun were temporarily taken, leaving him with nothing but time. Time to reflect on how quickly authority could turn into harm when wielded without care. Officer Laura Mitchell approached quietly, concern etched in her features. You good? She asked softly. He hesitated, then admitted, I don't think I'm supposed to be good right now. I think I'm supposed to be honest. She nodded. Maybe you're finally starting, but honesty is just the first step. What comes next? That's what defines you. The following morning, Judge Harris sat alone in her chambers, bathed in morning light, her gaze drifting over the letters and emails she'd received. Words of grace, strength, and clarity from strangers and colleagues alike. A simple sentence from an unknown sender lingered in her mind. You reminded me that staying calm doesn't mean staying silent. As she prepared for her day's docket, the weight of the night's events settled beside her like an old friend, reminding her that change was slow, often painful, but always necessary. Outside, a group of high school students, clipboards in hand, spotted her and waved enthusiastically. Judge Harris, one called out. We saw your video in class. She smiled gently, the warmth of their youthful energy piercing through the lingering shadows. Good or bad? Another shouted. Both, she answered softly, knowing that sometimes all it takes is one voice to change the course of 1,000 others.